Have you ever looked back at a painful moment and realized it led you to something better? At the time, it felt like the end, but later, it was the beginning of something deeper. In today's world, we often see challenges as interruptions, but the Stoics saw them as messages, not punishments, but lessons in disguise. What if life wasn't happening to you, but for you? What if every setback was shaping you for something greater? In this video, we explore Stoic wisdom that transforms how you see adversity, rejection, failure, even heartbreak. You'll learn how to stop resisting, start seeing the hidden meaning in your struggles, and build a mindset that turns chaos into clarity. Because when you understand that nothing is random, peace returns, strength returns, direction returns, and suddenly, the pain you once cursed becomes the reason you rise. Let's begin. Nothing happens by accident. Every adversity carries a message for you. Life isn't always smooth sailing. There are days when you feel like you're drifting through a storm with no end in sight. Everything suddenly becomes too much to bear: failure, pain, and constant worry about the future. They all come at once like a fierce wind, sweeping you away from any sense of grounding. In such moments, it's easy to lose faith and feel that everything happening is meaningless, that you're just a small, helpless victim in a harsh and indifferent world. But Stoic philosophy, which has existed for thousands of years, offers a profound truth that modern minds are still trying to grasp. Everything happens for a reason. Marcus Aurelius, both a Roman emperor and a great Stoic philosopher, once wrote, "Whatever happens to you, whether good or bad, can be endured if you look at it the right way." He didn't write this because he had never suffered, but because he understood that every hardship is an essential part of our journey toward growth. Stoicism doesn't promise you an easy life. It doesn't offer sweet words or promises of escape from suffering. Instead, it teaches you a new way of seeing a perspective that keeps you from panicking when adversity strikes, from collapsing when things don't go your way. To the Stoics, difficulty is not a roadblock, it is a teacher. Every time you fail, you learn something about your limitations. Every loss teaches you about the impermanence of the world. Every moment of pain offers a chance to practice patience, calmness, and inner strength. That's why Stoicism doesn't see adversity as something to avoid. It is something to receive, like a vital lesson life is sending your way. Picture this. You're walking in the park on a sunny day, and suddenly it begins to rain heavily. No umbrella, no raincoat, nowhere to shelter. You're soaked, freezing, and frustration starts to rise. You want to scream, to curse your bad luck. But then you stop. Instead of reacting, you breathe deeply. You feel each cold raindrop on your skin, each gust of wind against your body, and you realize the rain is just part of nature. It hasn't come to punish you. It simply is. That moment, if you are aware enough to observe instead of react, is the moment of freedom. When you stop resisting what's happening, you begin to see more clearly. Pain is no longer a burden, it becomes a signal. Failure is not the end, it's a checkpoint to realign your path. Epictetus, born a slave, and later a philosopher, is living proof of this. He couldn't choose his fate, but he chose how to respond to it. Despite hardship, he never cursed his lot. Instead, he used each difficulty to train his mind, each failure to build self-discipline, and from injustice, he found freedom, the kind of freedom no one can take away, inner freedom. So if you are standing in the middle of adversity, stop and ask yourself, what is the message here? What is life trying to teach me through this challenge? What can I take from this chaos to become a stronger, more grounded person? The truth is, you won't grow in your comfort zone. You won't discover your inner strength unless you're pushed to the edge. And you'll never know how resilient you really are until getting back up is your only choice. Stoicism doesn't help you escape reality. It helps you face it with clarity and intention. When you start seeing every hardship as an opportunity to grow, you will no longer fear them. You won't feel lost in the storm. And most importantly, you will stop asking why this is happening to you because you'll already know. Nothing happens by accident. It comes to wake you up, to sharpen you, and to lead you back to yourself stronger, clearer, and more resilient. The law of impermanence. When you stop resisting, you begin to be free. There is one unshakable truth that's often forgotten. Everything changes. Life is a constant stream. Nothing stays still. Every emotion, every event, every person changes, sometimes quietly, sometimes suddenly, but always inevitably. This is not something we can control. It is the natural order of things. Stoic philosophy calls this the law of impermanence, a foundational principle that allows us to remain peaceful in the midst of chaos. The Stoic masters, Epictetus, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius repeatedly reminded us, you cannot stop change, but you can learn to meet it with calmness. And when you stop resisting life, you begin to be free. Look within yourself. How many times have you felt exhausted, anxious, or unsettled, simply because things didn't go the way you expected? A relationship didn't last, a dream fell apart, a sudden change pulled you out of your comfort zone, and you resisted. You tried to hold on. You wanted things to stay the same. But it was your resistance that brought you pain. Stoicism doesn't teach surrender. It teaches acceptance with awareness. Acceptance is not giving up. It's seeing things as they are. Life doesn't follow your personal script, and in that realization, you are offered a choice: resist or transform. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Everything has a cycle. You cannot keep anything forever. If it is endurable, endure it. If not, let it go." This quote may sound cold, but it opens a door to inner peace. Stop clinging to what no longer belongs to you. Imagine standing on a mountain road. The wind is fierce. Rain begins to fall. You have two choices: curse the storm or keep walking. Knowing the rain is part of the journey, the Stoic chooses the second, not because they're emotionless, but because they understand. Storms are not to be avoided, they are to be walked through. It is precisely in unexpected changes that your resilience is forged. When a relationship ends, you learn about expectations. When a job crumbles, you discover adaptability. When your health fails, you confront the fragility of life and begin to live more fully. But to do this, you must release the illusion that life will go your way. You must realize, worrying and resisting change doesn't make things better. It only drains your energy and robs you of clarity. Think back to times you've suffered because something changed, only to look back later and realize it wasn't so bad. In fact, it led you to a better path. The problem wasn't the change, it was how you saw it and how you responded. Epictetus, born into slavery and disabled from a young age, could have lived in bitterness. But he accepted his fate. As a natural part of existence, he chose to master his emotions rather than let his circumstances rule him. He didn't demand fairness. He practiced stillness in the face of the uncontrollable that made him unbreakable. The secret isn't avoiding hardship, it's learning to live in harmony with the current of life. Freedom doesn't come from favorable conditions, it comes from your attitude toward them. When you no longer fear uncertainty, it loses its grip on you. When you realize the only thing you control is your response, you will no longer be thrown around by emotions. So next time something starts to shift, don't panic, don't fight it. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this change? Then, instead of resisting, walk forward with the quiet confidence that even in chaos, you can keep a calm center within. That's where freedom begins, not outside of you, but in your mindful acceptance. The obstacle is not in your way. It is the way sometimes. Life places an obstacle right in the middle of your path. You feel confused, angry, and lost. Things were going smoothly and suddenly, everything becomes unclear. You ask yourself, why is this happening to me? This is when you need to remember one of Stoicism's most powerful truths, a message from Marcus Aurelius himself. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. It may sound paradoxical, but it holds one of the deepest truths about growth. The obstacle doesn't block your path, it is the path. We often see adversity as the enemy, but to the Stoic, it is a strict but fair teacher. It gives you the chance to learn about courage, limits, perseverance, and your true self. Think about it. When have you grown the most? Was it during ease and comfort? Or was it when you were pushed to the edge, thought you couldn't go on and yet you kept going? We don't grow in ease, we grow in challenge. Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor strengthens the body." That's not a call to suffer, it's a truth about human development. Just as muscle needs resistance to grow, your mind needs hardship to become strong. You can see this in every person who has done something remarkable, from Thomas Edison, who failed over 1,000 times before inventing the light bulb, to everyday people who rose from heartbreak, loss, or failure to rebuild their lives. Their secret? They didn't stop at the obstacle, they didn't see it as the end, they saw it as part of the journey. And that's why the obstacle became the way. But if you avoid it, if you complain, hide, or wait for things to get easier, you'll stay stuck. You'll remain a spectator in your own life, always waiting for the right time. But life doesn't offer perfect conditions. It is always changing, always challenging, always moving. So don't wait for life to get easier, train yourself to get stronger. Stoicism doesn't promise a life without obstacles. It teaches you how to stand tall in the middle of them, and even use them as leverage to grow. And here's the strange part. When you change how you see adversity, you change how you live. When you stop fearing obstacles, they stop controlling you. When you start asking, what can I learn from this? Adversity stops being the enemy. It becomes a companion, not always pleasant, but always transformative. Maybe today, you're facing what seems like a slammed door, a failure, a breakup, a challenge you didn't expect. But instead of asking why, try saying, this is the way to growth, the way to true strength, the way to your best self. The Stoic doesn't wait for ideal conditions to act. They turn the very things that seem to block them into building blocks. And in doing so, they become unshakable. They don't run from hardship because they know hardship is the guide. Each time they're pushed back, they gain momentum. Each fall becomes a smarter step forward. And in that mindset, life with all its difficulty becomes a journey worth walking. Not because it's easy, but because every step transforms you. Remember, you don't grow by avoiding, you grow by facing. And no obstacle can stop the one who knows it is the path. Don't let your imagination defeat you. Action is the real power sometimes. What brings us down is not reality, but what we imagine in our own minds. You haven't failed yet, but you fear that you will. You haven't been rejected, but you're already preparing yourself for the pain. You're not in crisis, but your mind is already playing out the worst-case scenarios. Seneca, one of the most revered Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." That's not just a wise quote, it's a wake-up call for all of us, especially those living in an age of information overload but inner peace deprivation. For those trapped in loops of overthinking, anxiety, self-doubt, and fear, so much so that they're left with no energy to act. Reality doesn't break you. It's your reaction to reality that determines your fate. And if that reaction is driven by fear and imagined doom, it pulls you further away from clarity, from the present moment, and from your ability to choose your path. Stoics don't deny pain, fear, or insecurity, but they don't let their minds exaggerate them either. They train themselves to distinguish what is truly happening from what is merely being projected inside their heads. Because the more you imagine, the more you fear. The more you fear, the more you hesitate. And when you stop acting, the very things you fear begin to manifest. This is a dangerous spiral. Negative thoughts, negative emotions, inaction, negative outcomes. And then you conclude that your fear was justified, instead of seeing that it created the outcome itself. So what can we do? The Stoics remind us, we cannot control our circumstances, but we can always control our actions. And action is what breaks the chain of negative imagination. Return to the present moment. Ask yourself, what is within my control right now? What small step can I take to shift my situation or my state of mind? You don't need the answer to your entire future. You just need one intentional step right now. Because action not only produces results, but also dissolves fear. It turns the energy of anxiety into the power of movement. Look at those who show courage in life, not because they have no fear, but because they don't let fear control them. They act despite the doubts. They move forward even with trembling hearts, and that is where their strength is born. Your mind will always try to pull you back to the comfort zone, whispering things like, what if I fail? What if they judge me? What if things get worse? But if you sit and overanalyze, waiting for fear to disappear before taking action, you'll never begin. Fear doesn't vanish with waiting. It vanishes with movement. Stoics understand it is not thought, but action that defines who you are. Not what you think, but what you do with what you have. And when you build the habit of returning to the present, focusing on action rather than worry, you'll witness something extraordinary. Your mind becomes clearer. Anxiety begins to fade. Decisiveness starts to grow. Not because you're sure everything will go smoothly, but because you've chosen to move instead of being trapped in imagination. Life is a constant flow. You can let yourself drift in vague thoughts and let fate decide. Or you can steer with deliberate action. And each time you choose to act instead of overthink, you build a stronger version of yourself. Don't let your imagination defeat you. Action, even a small one, is the real power. Inner freedom doesn't come from circumstances, but from how you respond to them. There's a truth most people don't want to face. We cannot control the world, but we can always control ourselves. Some people live in wealth, yet constantly worry. Some endure great loss, but remain peaceful, not because their circumstances are different, but because their responses are different. And that's what defines true inner freedom. Stoicism has never promised that life will be easy. On the contrary, it prepares us mentally to face every storm, without letting those storms define who we are. Epictetus, once a slave living in hardship, wrote, "We cannot choose our circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond." It sounds simple, but think back to the last time someone insulted you. You felt angry, hurt. Maybe you wanted to retaliate, defend yourself, or lash out. But in that moment, did you pause and ask yourself, am I letting someone else control my emotions? When a comment ruins your whole day, when a cold look makes you question your worth, when an unexpected event derails your sense of direction, it is you, not the world, who has surrendered the power of your inner life. Stoicism teaches us that peace does not come from everything going your way. It comes from being clear and calm, even when they don't. Imagine sitting in a tense debate. The other person starts attacking, their tone rising. You feel the pressure building, but instead of reacting instinctively, you pause, take a breath, and choose not to react immediately. That's not passivity, that's freedom. You're giving yourself the space to choose your response, instead of being pulled into their emotional storm. And in that pause, You reclaim your inner power, not to win the argument, but to stay true to yourself. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If something external troubles you, the pain is not from the thing itself, but from your judgment of it." The world is chaotic. There's always something beyond your control. The weather, people's words, outcomes, opinions. But there is one thing that's always within your control: your response, your thinking, your chosen action. And that is the foundation of true freedom. No one can take it from you. Remember, no one can hurt you unless you allow it. No one can take away your peace unless you give it up. And no circumstance, no matter how harsh, can control you if you master your response. So how do we practice this? Become an observer of your inner world. Instead of reacting to every emotion, start by identifying it. What am I feeling right now and why? This simple habit removes you from reflex mode and places you back in command. Separate the event from the emotion. Just because something happens doesn't mean it has to lead to negative feelings. You're rejected. That doesn't mean you're worthless. You failed. That doesn't mean you're incapable. It just means you're alive. And living comes with struggle. Let events be just events. Let yourself be the one who chooses how to interpret and respond. Cultivate gratitude. It may sound simple, but it's a powerful remedy for inner storms. Every morning, instead of checking social media, ask, "What can I be thankful for today?" Every time something unpleasant happens, ask, "What can I learn from this?" You'll be surprised how your mind begins to calm and your heart opens to receive whatever comes. The Stoics don't run away from emotions. They don't let emotions lead. They walk through storms with grounded feet and a clear mind. And in doing so, you'll realize freedom doesn't come from external conditions. Freedom comes from inner clarity. When you know what's worth responding to and what isn't, you begin to live as a self-possessed person. That's when you're no longer swayed by praise or criticism, no longer dependent on approval or rejection, no longer carried away by life's waves, but quietly steering your ship, guided by your values. So the next time life tests you, don't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Ask instead, "How will I choose to respond so I can stay true to who I am?" And in that answer lies the key to the inner freedom you've been seeking. The journey of living by values. When you act right, you become unshakable. There is an important question that not many people take the time to seriously reflect on. What is the guiding compass of my life? When you're unclear about what you're truly living for, you're easily swept up by superficial things: reputation, instant success, the approval of others. But when you live by a clear set of values, you no longer feel the need to prove yourself or strive to be liked, because you know you're living rightly. Stoicism is not just a philosophy for overcoming hardship. It is a compass that turns you inward and guides you to live ethically in a world full of chaos. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do the right thing, even if no one is watching. Every other reward is unnecessary." And that is the core of inner strength, acting not to impress, but because it aligns with your values. The world will always have people who judge you. Some will misunderstand you, others will criticize you, but that doesn't matter. What matters is, are you betraying yourself? Because when you live against your true values, you begin to lose self-respect. You say one thing, but do another. You agree with what you don't believe in. You stay silent when you should speak up. And slowly, you lose the ability to trust yourself. Doing the right thing is not always easy. Sometimes you must go against the current. Sometimes you'll be misunderstood. Sometimes you'll have to walk away from tempting offers just to protect your inner integrity. But those very choices are what help you stand strong. Just like Marcus Aurelius, an emperor who lived with humility, who wrote in his journal daily to remind himself to be kind, to resist pride, and to avoid hatred. He knew that power without ethics is nothing more than a shadow that intimidates others but never illuminates oneself. Living by values is not something you do once, it's a discipline you practice every day. In how you treat a waiter, in how you respond when offended, in the decisions no one knows about, but you do. And the remarkable thing is, when you live rightly, you become harder to shake, not because you are stubborn, but because you are clear about what matters, what is fleeting, what is worth holding on to, and what must be let go. You may lose opportunities, you may face rejection, but you never lose your dignity. Imagine a man having to choose between keeping a promise to a friend or accepting an enticing invitation from someone influential on one hand, opportunity on the other. Principle. If he chooses principle, others might call him foolish, but deep down, he knows he is laying a foundation for a life of weight and meaning. You can't measure a person's true worth by what they say, but by how they act when no one is watching, and in those quiet moments when you choose to do the right thing. Even when no one notices, you become someone who cannot be moved. So how do you begin the journey of living by values? Define your 3 core values, such as honesty, responsibility, integrity. Don't choose too many. Choose what you truly believe in, not what sounds nice. Ask yourself every day, does this decision betray those values? If it does, pause. If it doesn't, do it, even if you're afraid. Accept that doing what's right may not always make you liked sometimes. Doing the right thing means saying no. It means failing. It means stopping in the middle of a crowd, running in one direction just to go the way you believe is right. Because those who live rightly don't seek agreement, they seek honesty with themselves. Stoicism teaches us that dignity does not come from status, but from the right choices repeated daily, without the need for recognition. When you live that way, you don't need to try to be strong. You already are, simply because you're no longer living to please the world, but to stay loyal to yourself. And that is the path to lasting peace, one that doesn't depend on praise or ease, one that doesn't falter in hardship, one that isn't twisted by personal gain. That is the true strength of a person who lives by values, one who doesn't need to shout to be heard, doesn't need to prove themselves to be respected, and doesn't need to win to know they are worthy. Letting go of what you cannot control, the secret to peace and resilience. One of the core principles of Stoic philosophy is the clear distinction between 2 things: what is within your control and what is not. Whenever you feel confused, anxious, or lost, pause and ask yourself, do I truly have control over this? Because most of the stress we experience doesn't come from the circumstances themselves, but from resisting what is beyond our power to change. You can't control what others think of you. You can't control the weather, accidents, or external crises. You can't control the past, and you can't fully control the future either. The only thing you can control is your response. Epictetus once wrote, "We are not disturbed by events, but by our perception of them." That simple quote is the key to unlocking many internal knots you may be carrying. When you try to control the uncontrollable, you turn yourself into a victim. You end up in a hopeless fight, like trying to catch the wind or hold water in your hands. The result is exhaustion, anger, despair, and losing yourself. On the other hand, when you accept that some things are not within your control, you begin to feel relief. You're not giving up, but letting go in the right places. And that opens the door to a very special kind of strength, steadiness from within. Imagine you're driving through a heavy storm. The wind howls, visibility drops. You can't stop the rain. You can't stop the wind, but you can keep your hands steady on the wheel. You can slow down, adjust your lights, choose a safer path. Life works the same way. You can't control what others say about you, but you can control how you behave when you hear it. You can't prevent loss, but you can choose to honor what was with gratitude instead of bitterness. This practice of letting go of what you can't control is not easy. It requires awareness, mindfulness, and at times, deep emotional effort. But the more you practice, the more peace you'll find. The truth is, many things you think you must control are actually unnecessary. You don't need to control how others love you. You don't need to eliminate every future risk. You don't need to master the entire path of your life. You only need to guide each step you take, each decision you make, each reaction you choose in the face of adversity. That is where true power arises. When you learn to clearly distinguish what you can influence from what you can't, you free your mind from endless battles. You stop arguing just to be understood. You stop clinging to uncertainty. You stop demanding that life happen your way. Instead, you begin to live flexibly without losing direction, soft, but not weak, mindful, but not detached, steady, but not closed off. Letting go is not surrender. Letting go is refusing to let your mind be hijacked by what lies outside your reach. It's preserving your precious energy for what you can build: character, dignity, clarity, and peace. When you do that, nothing can break you from within. No insult can truly wound you. No circumstance can make you lose your sense of direction. You become like a mountain in the storm, not because you're hardened, but because you've let go of what doesn't serve you and held on to what truly matters. And in that release, you discover the deepest secret of peace, the very thing people spend their lives searching for externally, but can only be found within. Peace is not a destination. It's how you walk through the storms of everyday life. We often imagine peace as a place, a final destination, after a long journey of hardship, a place where there are no more worries, no more chaos, no one can hurt you, and everything becomes calm, soft, like a quiet afternoon. But Stoicism doesn't see peace as a destination. To the Stoics, peace is a daily practice, a way of walking through turbulence, not a reward for avoiding it. Peace doesn't wait for things to become perfect. It is born right in the storm and grows from the choices you make within. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor of the Roman Empire, once wrote, "People seek peace in the countryside, by the sea, or in the mountains, but no place will bring calm to your mind if the storm lives within you." You can change your location, your job, end a relationship, but if you haven't learned to manage your thoughts, emotions, and reactions, the peace you seek will remain a mirage. So what is real peace? It is the ability to remain clear, even when misunderstood. It is the strength to sit through an argument and not let anger overtake reason. It is being able to grieve without being consumed. It is the conscious choice not to react instinctively, but to respond from your values and clarity. In modern life, this is especially important because storms don't just come in big waves, they come in the form of a difficult coworker, a critical email, a harsh comment on social media, a sleepless night, a cold stare, an unexpected shift. If you wait for the storm to pass to find peace, you'll be waiting your whole life instead. Stoicism invites you to build peace as a skill, just like building muscle or growing intellect. And the miracle is, when you treat peace as a skill, you no longer feel powerless. You realize you have a choice to stay angry or stay quiet, to react or observe, to blame or act. You may still feel negative emotions, but you don't let them drive your life. You learn to observe your mind like watching clouds drift in the sky. They come, they stay, they go. But you don't chase, you don't resist, you don't try to silence them all. You allow, but don't identify. And then you realize the peace you've been seeking, it was never far away. It appears when you pause to breathe. After a long day, when you choose forgiveness over revenge, when you don't send that message in anger, but wait for for clarity. When you understand how others behave is their business, how you live defines you. Helen Keller, the blind and deaf woman who became a global symbol of resilience, once said, "I could not have done great things without patience and calm." In a world of pressure, speed, and emotional turbulence, peace is no longer a luxury, it's essential, because only when you're calm can you see clearly. Only when you see clearly can you choose wisely. And only when you choose with clarity can you live with purpose. Peace won't keep you from storms, but it is the cloak you wear when walking into them. It is the inner light that guides your way when the outside world falls into shadow. And the most important thing is, you don't need to wait for any conditions to start practicing peace. You can begin today in this very moment. Just one deep breath, one quiet pause, one gentle question: what truly matters to me right now? Ask that question enough times, and it will become the compass that guides you through every storm.